Hi, my name is Josephine Altman, and for the Project Learning Tree presentation, I will be focusing on teaching kids about trees and observations in science. So some background information. Students have been around nature their entire life. Since they were born, they've been outside, they've been to parks, and they've seen nature their whole lives. But they might not have always looked very closely at the uniqueness of nature and the differences we can see in plants and trees and animals and all of the things that they see around them on a daily basis. This project is a great way to introduce trees and to introduce characteristics and what characteristics mean, especially when you look at trees and how they're all different. This will also help students learn about the difference between doing something from memory and doing something from observation and how it's so important to have observations, especially in a science class, so you can make the most accurate choice or accurate decision. Then this lesson is also a great building block for further instruction about plant life or nature, because this is just a great way to get the basics about trees, and this isn't like an in-depth kind of lesson, but it'll give a great foundation for future lessons to build on it. So the activity I'll be doing today is The Closer You Look, which is an activity to help students learn more about the differences between trees and to work on their observation skills while observing things. The grade level I picked was first grade because I think that's a great age to introduce more science into a curriculum. And at first grade, students will like to draw and they'll have a great time being outdoors, and it'll just be a really great way to start introducing the scientific topics such as observation and drawing and stuff. Then the objectives for this lesson are identifying characteristics of a tree's form and structure, and then comparing their drawings from the tree from their memory and with an observation drawing of a real tree. And then some subject areas that this includes are science, English language arts, and art. There are many ways that this can branch out into all of those subjects, but they also all are encompassed really well throughout this activity. Hi class, today we're going to be doing the Closer You Look activity, which is going to be all about focusing on trees. So there are so many different types of trees in the world. Over 50,000 different types of trees exist on our planet, which is so many. There are so many different types of trees too. We know some trees are really high and some trees are really short. They have all sorts of different leaves on their different trees, so some can be really big and flat, some can be cone-shaped, and some can have needles on them. There are so many different types of bark on a tree, so around the end, like encompassing a tree, they can be really soft and smooth to the touch, or they can be really rough. And then there are also different types of branches on a tree, so they can be really big and branch out, or they can come up and make a point at the top. Or a cone, kind of. So today we're going to be thinking about all the different trees we see around us in nature, and there are so many that we see every single day. So to begin, I would love for you all to take out your science notebooks and your crayons, and I want you to take your time and draw a tree from your memory. It can be any type of tree you've seen walking into school, a type of tree you've seen on TV, a type of tree you have at your house, and I would like you to draw it in your science notebooks on a blank page for us. Okay. Students will then draw their tree, and then we'll move on to part 2. So, part 2 is we're going to go outside class, and we are going to look at trees and make observations about the different trees we see on our school grounds. There are so many different types of trees. So, I would like you to take your notebook, and we're going to write down characteristics about a tree that we find outside. We can look at the tree shape. So is it really skinny, or does it have a bigger base? We can look at the trunk and the branches. So do the branches fan out, and are there a lot of branches, or are there a few branches, or do they come up to make a point at the top? We can look at the bark. So what kind of bark do you see? Is it really smooth when you touch it, or is it really rough, and when you touch it, it kind of hurts your fingers? We can also look at the leaves. What do the leaves look like? Are they really big? Are they really small? Are they crunchy? Are they flat? Are they maybe pine needles, or are they cones? What kind of tree? What do we see on the tree? We can also look and see if there's any seeds or fruits or flowers growing on the tree and what those look like. And then finally, do you see any other like animals around this tree or in the trees? Like maybe there's a bird in the tree, or maybe there's a squirrel. And you can all write that down in your science notebooks too, or draw a picture. So using our science notebooks when we go outside, I want you to draw pictures of all these different things. And I have a list, so I'll hand it out to you when we go outside. But let's go outside and see what we can observe. Students will then go outside on a field trip, and then we'll come back in later after our field trip. Okay, class. Now I want you to think about all those observations you made. Weren't there so many different types of trees that you saw around you? Now, using those observations, I want you to draw a new picture using your science notebook on a fresh page and your crayons. And I want you to use as much detail as possible to get that tree looking as close to the tree we just saw outside. If you've already kind of forgotten about the tree that we just saw, that's okay. I put some examples up on the board for you, so you can look at those for reference as you draw your new picture and from the observations you made about the trees. Now we can look at our trees and compare them from the first drawing to the second drawing. So, in the first drawing, we notice that there's not a lot of detail. And we can see that maybe we didn't see the branches, or we didn't see how many branches there were. And then on the second one, we can see more branches and the different birds that maybe we saw in the tree. There are just so many different types of trees. And when we took our time and made observations of the trees outside, it gave us a more accurate drawing than just from our memory. It's super important, class, that when we're in science, we need to make observations about what we see. All the different trees are different, and it's really important to get the details accurate on our trees. So we need to look at the color of the leaves, the type of leaves, and the branches, because that'll give us a more accurate representation of what we're trying to teach our class about, or what we're trying to learn about. So, okay, that was the Closer You Look activity. And here, for some modifications that I might make to that activity would be to, depending on the weather or the ways or the resources you have, you could always show the pictures of the trees on the board instead of actually going outside and having students look at the trees. Another way would be to have students work in groups and individually, because that would give kids somebody to bounce back off of and to help them remember what they just saw outside, because they are little kids, so they might forget what they saw even if they're supposed to write it down. So having a group together to go look at a tree, like different groups, can help them learn more about and remember what they learned. Another modification I might make would to split students up into groups and then have them focus on one element of a tree and then look at the different trees. So like a pine tree has pine needles, or a maple tree has big leaves. So one of those groups would focus on leaves, one of the groups would focus on bark, and then they come back in and talk about how many different types of leaves they saw and different types of barks they saw, so that students can really focus in on one and then teach the class, which is a great way to get students more engaged too in the classroom. And then I also might use a Venn diagram and have students compare and contrast, and then find the similar things between their original drawing and their new drawing. Because I think that's a really great way to also incorporate math into it, kind of, because Venn diagrams help in math too. So it would also help students with writing and looking at their own drawings and finding out the differences and the similarities. And then some extensions I might make would be to have older students, create models of their tree using toilet paper rolls or pom-poms, and have them recreate a model, like a 3D model of their tree. and then label the different parts of the tree, so the branches, the leaves, the bark. Another extension would be to have students research a tree that isn't grown in the state that they're working in or in the area. So here, like Wisconsin, they could research a tree that grows in Hawaii or a tree that grows in the Alaskan mountains. So that would be like really interesting for them to learn more about trees that aren't just in their community. And then I might also combine these two and make it a presentation for students. So have students research a tree anywhere and then build a 3D model of the tree and then present it to the class in groups. So this could be a group or individual student type of thing, and then give speeches to the whole group about the different trees they researched. I think this would be a really great way for students to work with groups, to work on their presentation skills, to work on giving speeches to a whole class, and to learn more about trees and like how scientists like present their findings to a whole group. So that was the Closer You Look activity for the Project Learning Tree presentation. So thank you.